It's the 29th of January 2026, and I'm walking the streets of Tirana, maybe for the last time in this chapter of my life here. In 2 days, I'll leave for Corcha. Quieter streets, cleaner air, a different kind of solitude. As I walk, these 2 months in Tirana begin to blur into memory. Evenings in the square, cafes tucked into side streets, books read on park benches, but also the weight of disconnection, from home, from certainty, from answers. And still, part of me is back in the US, watching it all unfold from afar, especially what's been happening this week in Minnesota. The grief, the fracture, the silence, the noise, the deep ache of watching a country you love come apart in places you recognize. Even here, in Tirana, where life moves differently, it's not untouched. Just last Saturday, a large protest filled the streets downtown. I wasn't there, but I read about it. The voices, the frustration, the sense of something simmering. It's a reminder. The strain people feel, the reaching for something firmer, isn't just American. It's global. And that brings me to the question I've been carrying since I arrived here. How do you actually become a better person in a world that feels like it's unraveling? I'm not a renowned moral philosopher. I'm not a global activist. Honestly, I wouldn't even know how to be. I'm just a man walking through a city with a camera, a voice, and a conscience, trying to live honestly inside a moment that feels morally sideways. This isn't self-help. It's a question of responsibility. Because one of the real reasons I left the United States wasn't just politics or burnout, it was incongruity. My work no longer fit who I was becoming. The culture no longer fit what I valued. The direction the country was heading no longer aligned with the life I was trying to live. I felt myself shrinking, not dramatically, but quietly, calcifying, adapting in ways that made me smaller, duller, less curious, less humane. And I knew deep down that if I stayed in that environment without changing anything, I would wither. So I left, not to escape responsibility, but to take it more seriously. I wanted to live what I call the Renaissance spirit, not as a brand or an aesthetic, but as a way of being. A life grounded in curiosity, ethical reflection, civic responsibility, creativity, and care for the shared world. Maybe that was a false dichotomy. Maybe I could have stayed and fought. But at the time, I couldn't see a way to remain whole while doing so. So I came here to breathe, to think, to ask better questions, like this one. How do you live a life you can stand behind, even when decency no longer feels rewarded? We aren't the first to ask these questions, and we won't be the last. There's a precedent for this question, not in theory, but in lived crisis, and his name was Cicero. He lived in the final days of the Roman Republic, a statesman, a philosopher, a man who believed that public life should be governed by law rather than force. He saw what was coming, the rise of strongmen, the collapse of norms, the corrosion of civic trust. And he didn't stay silent. He spoke, he wrote, he challenged power openly. He defended the idea that a republic is only as strong as its shared commitment to virtue and restraint, and it cost him his life. Cicero was hunted down, executed. His severed hands and head were displayed in the Roman Forum, a warning to anyone else who thought words still mattered. He didn't win, but history remembers him not because he prevailed, but because he stood. And that's what I keep asking myself as I walk these wet streets of Tirana. What does it actually mean to stand when you don't know if it will change anything? Because big moral acts don't come from nowhere. They grow out of habits. Being better starts with noticing and not turning away. Moral erosion is often quiet, a shrug, a silence, a story scrolled past. Being better means noticing the leak in the vessel, the trust draining from society, and deciding it matters. You can't grow without discomfort. Self-care matters, but comfort isn't the goal. If we want to stay morally awake, we have to sit with pain, ours and others, and let it shape us without hardening us. Small acts are moral anchors. Listening when it's hard, telling the truth when it's inconvenient, refusing to dehumanize. These are not small things. They are how moral capacity is built. Meaning isn't found, it's made. Not discovered like buried treasure, but constructed through care, consistency, and commitment. Meaning grows from what we choose to defend. That's why I created what I call the social contract of the commons. Not as ideology, but as a personal and civic framework. The commons, as I define it, is the shared world we inherit and shape together. The air, the water, the land, our institutions, our truth space, the dignity of other people, and the future itself. The social contract of the commons asks one guiding question: does this serve the shared world? And it demands one simple ethic: do good in all things, great and small. Because when systems reward selfishness, serving the commons becomes a radical act, and the big moral moments come after 1,000 small ones. Cicero didn't wake up one day and choose martyrdom. He practiced courage, speech by speech, choice by choice, until standing became unavoidable. That's what I try to remember. The defining moment doesn't start big. It starts with how we treat people, how we respond to injustice, how we speak when silence would be easier. So here I am, still asking, how do we live lives that are both tender and brave? How do we carry grief and still act with clarity? How do we become people who, when history looks back, are remembered not just for what we believed, but for what we refused to normalize? Cicero didn't live to see the Republic restored, but his words outlived the tyrants, so might ours. You don't have to be Cicero, but you do have to care. So ask yourself, what kind of person do you want to be in the middle of all this? And maybe more to the point, how do you want to be remembered? And to that, looking back on your life, your successes and failures, what you tried to give back to the world, how do you want to remember yourself? So as I pack up this apartment, look toward the mountains in Corsa, and say goodbye to Tirana for now, I carry this question forward. What kind of person do I want to be in the middle of all this? Rain falls lightly. The streets carry on, and I keep walking, hoping to meet the person I want to be, the one I build with each step, wherever the world takes me. I hope you continue to join me on the journey as you take your steps along the way.